The Europa League and the Champions League is coming in next week, starting again, as well as we are going over our Premier League team of the season alongside some transfer news as well as our wonderkid to watch. Now, today's podcast is going to be a little bit interesting because, of course, we're not going to have any match days that we're going to recap, which we usually do on the podcast. But it's going to be definitely interesting because we're going to be making some predictions about the Europa League and the Champions League, as well as who we think are the favorites, of course. And alongside, we got a more of a special segment, the Premier League team of the season. I'm pretty excited about that. I've been really thinking about it, and I think I got some picks that aren't as clear to many people or as viewed as ideal, I guess. But of course, there are all those standard picks that everyone I expect should get it. And we got those transfer news, like I was talking about, from regarding Atletico, Inter, Chelsea, and yeah, our Werner kid to watch. But let's start off with the Europa League. Now, the Europa League, I'll be honest, not really a competition I pay attention that much to, but I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to it this season. I got more time now because of COVID and all. And looking at the Europa League, I'd say that there are a couple teams that I view as favorites. Now, I'm not going to talk about teams from leagues that I don't know, such as the Turkish league, uh, and the Belgian league or whatever other leagues there are, and that are as big, such as the Premier League or the Bundesliga. And I can give some thoughts regarding the Serie A. But looking at it, I'd still say, just looking at the teams and their strength and their recent form, it's got to be United, Manchester United, as well as Bayer Leverkusen, favorites for the Europa League, alongside potentially Wolves. Because Wolves, I haven't seen their form that well. I think it's gonna be a little bit of a struggle maybe because of what they're done, what they've their recent form has been. But what they can do, I really do think that Wolves still has a strong team. But looking back to the main two teams that I was talking about, Manchester United and Leverkusen. Manchester United under Fernandes and have just been, pretty solid. And I think that if they play their cards right, or if they play to what they're recently more expected to play, specifically under Fernandez and how the team's been playing, just winning just constantly, and how they finished third after being way lower on the league, I think is quite a achievement that they could carry out towards the Europa League. If they don't, I could see that. I really can see them missing that out, missing that momentum. Because let's be honest, when they were facing United versus Chelsea in the FA Cup, they just rolled over, and ultimately that was due to some the goalkeeper mistakes from David De Gea. But even with other players like Maguire or De Gea or someone in the midfield, or maybe the front three isn't as clicking, which I highly doubt them not doing in the Europa League. But if that happens, then I can see them. I won't be surprised. They've done it before. Some players from the team have just not been clicking, and ultimately that will leads them to not, scoring those goals and eventually uh, winning a cup or a tournament and winning some key important games, such as that Manchester United versus Chelsea game. And it could be possible. But if I'm gonna be honest, I do expect them to win the Europa League. I also expect Bayer Leverkusen to reach the finals. I think that is definitely something that they're capable of, because I'm pretty certain that Kai Havertz, he's reported to leave for Chelsea, but I don't think he's going to do what Timo Werner did and opt out of the European competitions. I think that would be really disgraceful, like what Timo Werner did. But if he doesn't, I think that, which I'm pretty sure he won't, if he goes with Bayer Leverkusen and Leverkusen squad, just not even focusing on Kai Havertz specifically, but the rest of the squad is pretty good. Like, it's really solid. And unfortunately, they didn't get the top four for in the Bundesliga, with Gladbach taking it and with their form slightly dipping in the end of the season. But with Kai Havertz looking strong again than when he was earlier in the Bundesliga season, I think that we got a potential really good games ahead for Bayer Leverkusen, as well as the results that they can drive forward with with Kai Havertz, such as their talisman player, before he leaves ultimately for Chelsea, which is looking most likely the case. And I think that would be really incredible. Unfortunately, I was talking about how it would be incredible if he won the German Cup before he left Bayer Leverkusen. He didn't do that. But if he could do the Europa League, I think that'd be even bigger. But still, I think those teams are the main ones. Wolves, like I said earlier, they could also be it. But yeah. Oh, and of course, I did not want to forget this. Inter Milan. Inter Milan are in that tournament as well. And I think that it's going to be down to those three. If I'm going to be honest, looking at it more now, I'd say that I don't think Inter Milan. I think Inter Milan will reach the semifinals, but they won't reach the finals. I don't know. There's something about that team. I've seen some of the highlights, and of course that doesn't account for the entire team's performance. But I don't think that squad is fully fleshed out yet until the next season, where they're bringing in players such as like Hakimi, and I think that they have like kind of improved that squad in the January transfer window, for example, with signings such as Christian Eriksen, who's an amazing player. Hopefully, I think he's starting to get his form back in at that team. But if I don't see that team fully winning that Europa League with other teams out there such as Manchester United and Bayer Leverkusen. I don't really see it. As well as Roma, I also think that they will reach the semifinals. And I there's not another team that I can really think of that is going to be a standout team at the Europa League. Maybe Rangers or Wolfsburg, they can pull something off, but I doubt that. But just looking at those teams, I'd say Bayer Leverkusen and Manchester United in the finals, most likely in my opinion, and at least one of those teams in the finals, and then Roma and Inter Milan in the semifinals. I think that's as far as it can go. Roma, I think, can be a dark horse to win the not the Premier League, excuse me, but the Europa League. Those are my predictions, and I'm gonna be honest. I feel pretty strong about them. Just looking at the team's strengths, I think that's a solid. I think what I'm predicting is pretty solid. All right, moving on to the Champions League. We already made our predictions for the Europa League, but now looking at the Champions League, something I feel more confident on with my predictions than the Europa League. But looking at the teams, we got some matches that need to be finished, specifically such as the Bayern Munich versus Bayern Munich versus Chelsea. Let's be honest, Bayern Munich will be moving on to the next round. If they don't, then Chelsea have absolutely just upset all odds because Bayern Munich has, like, I believe 3 away goals on aggregate, and now they're going to their home stadium. Bayern Munich just in absolutely hot form. I should expect them. They should win that, and they most certainly will. But looking at the teams left over, we got Real Madrid, Man City, Juventus, Atletico, Leipzig, Barcelona, and Barcelona, Napoli, and Atalanta and Paris Saint-Germain. Looking at the teams, I don't think that Barcelona, Paris, PSG with the Mbappe injury looking pretty bad, and I don't think that Atalanta will either win. Either of those teams will win, and I don't think Juventus will either. Looking at the strength of that Juventus team, I just don't think that they're fully fleshed out or fully strong in terms of just like the quality of some of their players. Some of their players are pretty old, and some of their players are pretty young, such as De Ligt, and I think that he's still developing as a defender. Of course, he's only 20 years old. But looking at the teams, Real Madrid looking most certainly out. I think that Manchester City, especially at the end of that Premier League season, just looking absolutely hot on fire right now. Raheem Sterling as well. Although I'm pretty sure that they won't have Aguero because Aguero was out of the Premier League due to injury. That means that they're going to be without their striker. But Gabriel Jesus is a solid backup. And I think that Man City will beat Real Madrid. Juventus should beat Lyon, right? And I think just looking at it from, I guess, my point of view on what the team should, how they should like be expected to play out, it's going to be either down to Man City or Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich, absolutely killer striker in Lewandowski. Man City, absolute killer player in Kevin De Bruyne. And I think it's going to be down to those teams. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't even see Barcelona I mean, there's a Messi interview where he was saying like, if we're gonna keep up our performances because they were putting in some poor performances in La Liga, then we're not gonna win against Napoli. If your key talisman player is saying that if you keep it up, then you're not gonna win in Napoli, that's just the starter of how low the confidence is in that team. That they're not really confident in their odds and chances against a Napoli side. A Napoli side who won the Italian Cup, I believe, and had a pretty solid season. And they should look pretty high in confidence and view that they can take something from that game. And it's already, I believe, on aggregate 1-1. So Barcelona has an away goal, but if Barcelona can hold out in Camp Nou, then it could be positive. But I could see Barcelona reaching quarterfinals and then get knocked out. And of course, I think Bayern and Man City will go to the finals, and then Juventus quarterfinals, so semifinals, and Real Madrid, of course, knocked out because Man City beat them. And then Atletico. I have a feeling, just looking at Atletico and as well as Leipzig, looking at those teams, how they're playing, I think that the way their coaches are pretty good. Julian Nagelsmann, and not pretty good, like solid, amazing. Julian Nagelsmann and Diego Simeone. I think that the way Simeone plays and like can just like really mess with unsettle a team like he unsettled Liverpool at Anfield. I think they could get a result even to the semifinals, I believe. And Leipzig are interesting because I have high hopes for them, but at the same time, since Timo Werner, their best player, I'd argue, just left and won't be playing for them in the Champions League because he abstained because he wanted to get his transfer to Chelsea or his move to Chelsea far quicker. Then I don't really see him. I don't really see this Leipzig team, getting that far. I think. I think that let's see. Let me look at exactly what is their quarter and semifinal draw. Leipzig versus Atletico. Yeah, I'd have to say Atletico on this one, and then Atletico will go into the semifinals, and then the next quarterfinal matchup will be Man City, which is the team I predicted that I think will win, and Juventus versus Lyon. So Juventus. So I'd say Man City. So Juventus gets knocked out of the quarterfinals. Napoli or Barcelona gets knocked out in the quarterfinals, depending on the result from that. And Atalanta versus PSG. It's now speaking PSG as well. I'd say that PSG is going to be down to whether or not Mbappe gets knocked out. Exactly how long his injury? I mean, I saw the injury that was at the French Cup. It was really bad. So I'm not really positive about his return coming back that quickly and how he can help PSG in the Champions League. But that's really sad for PSG as a club. So I think that Atalanta definitely is something that they can take away. Atalanta versus PSG. I don't know enough about both teams because I don't watch French football and I don't really watch Italian football that much, specifically Atalanta. I know that Atalanta's goal making just like is absolutely insane. So I think that could be a favor to them. But looking at it ahead, I don't know too much about those two games, but I have a feeling it's going to be Man City and Bayern in the finals, and then Atletico or Barcelona Napoli in the semifinals, and then the quarterfinals Juventus and those, of course, all those other clubs. But yeah, I think this Champions League will be interesting, especially since it's going to be without any fans and it's going to be knockout like the World Cup. So there's not going to be as that home and away games for some of those games, but it's going to be definitely interesting, and I'm pretty excited for every time. Champions League usually doesn't disappoint, so I'm pretty excited. And if you guys have any of your predictions, just make sure to put it in the YouTube comments below. All right, time to talk about the Premier League team of the season, the starting 11 for the overall team, as well as the substitutes for that team. Now, I had a couple of ideas on what I wanted in this starting 11, and I think there's some obvious choices. So let's start off with the goalkeeper. I wouldn't say the goalkeeper is specifically obvious, but Ederson, I don't think he really had a good season. He had some major mistakes, and alongside Manchester City, they didn't look that great with the quality of players they have on their team. But I'd have to give it to Alisson, just what he's been doing at Liverpool. Of course, he was sidelined for a couple of games because of an injury, and Adrian had to step up. But I still think that he's the best goalkeeper in the league. But I think that Nick Pope and Dean Henderson are really close. And on my sub bench, the goalkeeper that I had as a substitute was Dean Henderson. I think that Dean Henderson or Nick Pope, those two could have easily been in that bench goalkeeper section. And I think it was kind of a tough choice in choosing Dean Henderson, but I just chose Dean Henderson because of what he's been doing with Sheffield United. I feel is more bigger, I guess, more of an impact at specifically Sheffield United. Of course, Nick Pope had his great match against Liverpool where he just stopped so much of Mo Salah's goal. But that's my goalkeepers. And then moving on to the back four. All right, fullbacks, it's pretty obvious. Liverpool's fullbacks, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, have been just the absolutely top fullbacks in the league for their respective positions and wings. And I don't think that's really argued. I guess you could say Wan-Bissaka, which I did say Wan-Bissaka in the substitutes. I really do think he's been amazing. Just absolutely really good defender. Really, really good one-on-one defender. And he got that pace, and he could run forward. And like Robertson, I'd say, in terms of running forward, but challenging more of the players instead of just whipping across and over and over. But center backs, Van Dijk, he's the best center back in the league. There's not really much to argue about. Aymeric Laporte, I didn't even put him in the substitute because he's been injured for majority of the season. But Soyuncu is my other center back pairing. I do think that Soyuncu is one of the best defenders in the league. Now that Harry Maguire got moved out of Leicester for Manchester United, I think that Soyuncu has filled that position quite well, and he's just a dominant, really good. He's got pace, that's for sure. If you've seen that clip, you should check out Soyuncu just sprinting all the way back. He has commitment and he has pace in terms of just running back for the defense, and he's a strong, dominant tackler and defender. I think he's been really good this season. Of course, he had some poor mishaps at the end of the season, but still, we're looking at the overall season. We're not looking at the past couple of games specifically too much. We're not taking it too much into account. But that's my back four. And then moving on to the midfield, of course, De Bruyne and Henderson. I think I'm not going to argue about who is the better midfielder, but De Bruyne and Henderson are, I'd say, the best. Those two have been the best top two midfielders in the Premier League. Not really much you can argue about that. Fernandes, I also put in the midfield, more like an attacking midfield, but in that midfield regardless. I was a little skeptical, not in terms of he's an amazing player and what he's doing at Manchester United is absolutely incredible, but more of how long he's been playing. And then I thought about it more. I couldn't really think of a player that could fill that, potentially Ndidi as like more of a defensive player, or Fabinho, but not even Fabinho. I didn't really view him as that big of a player for Liverpool and overall in the Premier League. So I ultimately came to the decision for Fernandes, just what he's been doing. I think he's been absolutely hot fire ever since he came to Manchester United, and I think that's half of a season, and that's still pretty impressive what he's doing. And then moving to our front three, Mane and Salah on the left and right. I think that those two have been absolutely destroying the league, especially in that first half of the season. And then they slowly waned off, but they're still just amazing what they did the entire season. So much goal output and so much goals they have delivered for Liverpool specifically. And now the striker, specifically, I chose Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy, I am pretty amazed by the amount of people that have been putting different players in at the center of that striker role. People have been putting Aubameyang, which I that's fair, and I could see the argument for that. Martial, which I don't really understand as well. Danny Ings, which I can understand a little bit, but not that much either. I just don't understand it. Jamie Vardy is by far the best striker, in my opinion, in that Premier League. And Aubameyang is a very, 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 very close second. And he's very close to that first place as well. But Jamie Vardy has to be in it for me. That's what he's been doing. Absolutely. He's won the Golden Boot this season for starters. Of course, Aubameyang was one goal away. But what he's been doing for Leicester specifically, unfortunately, it didn't translate all the way, and they lost that top four position. But what he's been doing for majority of that season, just been absolutely incredible. Alongside his center back Soyuncu, that's why I put them in here, because of what they did for Leicester for majority of that season. Of course, those couple of games, I don't want to take that away from them, those positions. But going on to the substitutes, of course, I said Dean Henderson for a backup to Alisson, and then Jack Grealish, because he can play in central midfield and attacking midfield like he has been for Aston Villa. And then I put Aubameyang as a backup striker for, of course, Jamie Vardy, just because he's been amazing as well for Arsenal, for an Arsenal side that hasn't been that good. And then Pulisic, because of what he's been doing. It kind of related to how Fernandes, but I felt that Pulisic wasn't the same impact as Fernandes was for Manchester United, because Pulisic hasn't played that many games. He's played a good amount, and he's scored a lot in those games, and he's assisted a lot in those games that he's played. But I don't think he has had that big of an impact as Fernandes, which is why I didn't put him in that starting 11. And Connor Cody, center backup, just because he's been absolutely, I say, just amazing. And I put Raheem Sterling and then Wan-Bissaka. Raheem Sterling, just I think that he's been incredible as well, especially near the end of the season, alongside at the beginning of the season, just been absolutely prolific in his goal scoring. And I do think that although he won't make the starting 11, because I prefer Mane and Salah, or Mane specifically, over him, I still think that he's a very close, very, very close to that starting 11. And Wan-Bissaka, I think Wan-Bissaka has been really good, but he doesn't. I don't think he gets anywhere really that close to Trent Alexander-Arnold. And Robertson, I guess you could say Benjamin Chilwell as a substitute, but I didn't put him in just because I don't think he's been that great. I think he's had some certain parts in the season where he's been good, but not that great throughout that season, enough to be in the team of the year, the Premier League team of the year. But this is overall what I thought. If you disagree, you can always leave it in the comments below, and of course I will respond to it. I will talk to you about it. I love talking about it, and just be civil. And this is my team of the year, and this is some of the people and players that the players that I thought were really stand out this season. And of course, if you're listening on this to the podcast, the audio version, we will have a YouTube video coming up with some visuals of who we have in that starting 11, which we will see later in a couple of days. Moving on to some transfer stories. We got some news regarding Matthias Ginter, a Freiburg youth player and academy player that moved on to, of course, Borussia Dortmund and now Borussia Mönchengladbach, where he helped them get top four. There's interest coming from Atletico, Inter, Chelsea, as well as, I believe, Arsenal regarding Matthias Ginter. Just starters, I can understand that interest because some of those teams need more center backs, specifically Chelsea and Arsenal. They need those center backs to really strengthen the defense that the poor defense that they have. And I don't know exactly about Atletico and Inter if they have any defensive issues, but Chelsea and Arsenal definitely do have some defensive issues that they need to solve. And I can understand exactly why they want Matthias Ginter, because just looking at overall what he provides, he's a superb defender, first of all. German international, and he's already been capped multiple times. I believe it was 20-plus appearances for the German national team. He won the World Cup with them. 26-year-old, so he still has a lot of room for resale in terms of they can transfer him again. So he still has a lot of playing time ahead of him, especially for a center back. He's 6'3", so he's pretty good. He should be pretty good in the air. And overall, he can be solid in that back four, back three, in terms of really building up a play in the defense, playing playing in the back, playing it off in the back, with where he reads the game well and is good on the ball. 85% average passing success this season in the Bundesliga, which is pretty good. And I think he's been the predominant focus in that Borussia Mönchengladbach defense, as well as Jan Sommer, the goalkeeper. And even Joachim Low, the German national coach, has even talked about him and what he's been able to provide. For example, as a coach, you know what to expect from him. He's dependable, and he's able to do what we want him to do, which is to help build the play up from the back. He's improved defensively too. He has a certain calmness about him, which what makes him so solid, reliable, and dependable. I'm particularly happy that he was able to score such a beautiful goal today. Okay, ignore that last part. But just looking at what he provides, I think is what some of these teams, specifically those Premier League teams, Chelsea and Arsenal, need. Because some of those teams are looking to play out from the back, and they don't have defenders that can really fully provide that to them, like other teams such as Manchester City has with Aymeric Laporte, or Liverpool has with Virgil van Dijk. They don't have those defenders that can provide that. And I think that Ginter can provide that. But the main problem will have in terms of acquiring him is whether or not Gladbach will be willing to cave in. And there's reports that Gladbach's sporting director is very, very, very hesitant, or he just doesn't want to really sell him because he has been a key part of Borussia Mönchengladbach's process in the road in getting top four in the Bundesliga. And it's gonna be very tough, very, very tough for them to take such a valuable defender from them. And there's even reports that Ginter, he still believes that he still has some things to do at Gladbach. So whether or not those teams can get him is going to be a question, and they might not even be able to get him, of course, with some skeptical interest and, of course, skeptical viewing by the Borussia Mönchengladbach board and the sporting director, as well as the player potentially himself. So it's going to be a little bit tough, and maybe even another season needs to go by before he moves on to another club. We got a wonder kid from the Belgian league, not in the Premier League or the Bundesliga. Belgian rising star who's already had 3 appearances in the Belgian national team, as well as 44 senior appearances in all competitions, just turning 19. Yerry Varsharin, playing for Anderlecht in the Belgian league. Now, this wonder kid, this Belgian player, Yerry Varsharin, has been looking pretty solid in terms of his future potential growth. Playing for Anderlecht, he's been playing alongside Vincent Kompany. Of course, for those of you who don't know, Vincent Kompany is an amazing player in the Premier League. Was an amazing player in the Premier League for Manchester City. And I think that with Vincent Kompany, he could help lead and help guide Varsharin to getting and fulfilling his potential. Because potential he has. I mean, looking at the Belgian national team, there's so many talents in there, and I do really think that we got another Belgian talent that could potentially grow and meet those levels and odds that are expected of him. Because he is a 19-year-old Belgian attacking midfielder for Anderlecht, as I said before, and he's looking pretty versatile in terms of the positions he can play. Central midfielder, attacking midfielder, and right winger this season. Just overall, he looks like he can play a good variety of roles, and he's been described as Eden Hazard in terms of the way he plays, specifically him being agile and just a quick player where he can turn quickly and move the ball well when he's attacking in his attacking play. And he's right-footed, and he's a technically gifted player with the way he can he uses his technique and the naturally gifted technique he has in terms of scoring goals and assists. In regards to goals and assists this season, it's not that majorly impressive, of course, with 2 goals and 1 assist this season. But it also needs to you got to keep in mind that the Belgian team that he is in is 8th in the standing, so you shouldn't expect those high as standards, of course, with a team that's not performing as well to see those goals coming in. But Yerry Varsharin is looking very, very strong. I mean, 19-year-old just turned 19 recently, and he already has 3 international caps with a goal as well. I think in a strong Belgian national team that is there, and he's already getting appearances in that team, is looking like even the Belgian national team, the Belgian team coaching staff are really confident about this player and what he can provide for the Belgian team in the future. And we already got players such as Kevin De Bruyne and Eden Hazard who are doing incredibly well. Eden Hazard, of course, not doing as well because of the injury problems he's facing. But the way he plays, he's been described as Eden Hazard. Just because how he can quickly turn. But looking more at him, I see him more as a potential Kevin De Bruyne as well. I don't think he has that same physical dominance, of course, because he is 5'8", and but I think that what he provides in terms of his passing ability, it could be solid in terms of if the same way Manchester City plays quite around Kevin De Bruyne and like allows him to move up and they trust him in his passing ability. I think that Yerry Varsharin, if a team can give him that leeway, I think that he will excel quite well. And looking at the way Anderlecht has played this season, it doesn't look like it's not fully oriented or fully utilizing Varsharin's qualities to his maximum level. And I think that if Vincent Company continues to stay at Anderlecht, he can still guide him. And if Varsharin just growing and beginning to get those senior appearances, which he already has 44 of in the Europa League, the JPL, and the Belgian League, and I think that through that he can grow as a player. And the way he plays, it really does. I can understand the comparisons to Eden Hazard. Just the way he plays it's quite similar. And I also see some bits of Kevin De Bruyne. I think you can see some of those bits, and I think that what it really needs is him developing. And I think the true test of his skill and his potential and his ability to reach that potential will be, of course, when he moves to another club, such a different club, such as in the Premier League or in the Bundesliga or in the French league. But I think if he needs to get that move, because I think another season at the Belgian, or another 1 or 2 seasons at that league, the Belgian league, will suffice before he needs to move on if he wants to further his career and reach his potential further and show what exactly he can offer to the world and what he can offer to the Belgium and with his footballing talent.